So a few weeks ago, my friend Cecilia and I had a little interview that was on this channel. I'll put a link above to our chat. Cecilia is the one regular guest of this channel. And anyway, she used to be the head moderator of the Neville subreddit. And we were talking about the idea of going back on the subreddit and to experiment what Reddit is like and maybe creating what Reddit is like in 2024 in regards to these Neville and manifesting ideas, and perhaps create our own little subreddit group to see if we could have like a sane conversation, like a small community. And so we both posted a couple things. And I haven't spoken to Cecilia in the last day or two about it, but I have a feeling that she's probably not going to be posting that much, and I am done posting. The experiment is done for me. We're not going to have a community on Reddit unless something drastically changes, which is not a surprise. But what I found interesting, and I don't know, perhaps Cecilia will have more to say on her channel, or next time we talk, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit. What I found very interesting, re-entering the Neville Law of Assumption Reddit scene, was even more so than before, because I hadn't been on there since like the fall of 2022 when I was moderating it, or the late summer, maybe 2022 even. What I noticed even more this time is how insular a community it is, the Neville Law of Assumption community. And it's I think one of the biggest manifesting subreddits on Reddit. But it is really fascinating to see the extent of the groupthink on there in regards to a great teacher like Neville. And, this is not just something that happens with Neville's advice by any means. This is what happens with a lot of spiritual teachers, law of attraction type stuff, is that people get together in a group and there's a massive amount of groupthink. What's interesting is just the degree to which this happens in the law of assumption community, as we often talk about. And so it was really interesting to briefly be there again and to experience that. And yeah, I guess I'm still processing it in some ways, but some of the early conclusions I would make about it is just like, there's a degree of denial there and a degree of shame that people don't want to talk about applying Neville's advice. Like the denial of it not working well for them. Most people who are on the sub, the Neville's advice is not working well for them. And they feel ashamed about that. And what you see a lot of is people projecting, therefore, toxic positivity, like everything's going to be fine, things are great, or people just being like shaming others to mask their own shame. It's like, well, you just have to persist more. You just have to live in the end more. You just have to do sats more. So many of the posts on the Neville subreddit are clear masking of this shame and the inability to grapple with the fact that Neville's advice is not simple to apply for most people. But you see so many people posting, like, you read their posts and it's like they figured everything out if you just read their posts. Like they seemingly have figured out Neville and how the law of assumption works, and like, listen to me, guys, this is how you do it. And it's just bizarre because, like, if you're into any of this stuff for a while, you realize it's never that easy or straightforward for anybody. It's not like, this is how you do it, now do it. If it was literally as easy as, this is how you do it, now do it, and people could do it, it would be a different world. But, as I talk about, like, in the law of attraction simplified, this stuff sounds very simple, but it's not easy. And it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. And on the Neville subreddit, people are saying a lot, basically just regurgitating what Neville said in a much, poorer fashion, a lot less eloquent fashion. This incredibly watered down version of what Neville says, simplifying it in this ridiculously simplistic way, and then saying, this is how it works. Just do it this way. No, if something's not working for you, it means because you're not doing it right. You just got to do it this way. Just do it this and it's going to work. And so there's a lot of shame going on there, shaming others for it not working. Now, here's the truth. Neville's advice does not work well for most people who try it. Even if it works some of the time or for some things, meaning you're able to manifest a few things or maybe, a few significant things using his advice. Most people don't have sustained fulfillment utilizing his recommendations. That's not a knock against Neville whatsoever. That's the case for most all manifesting advice. It doesn't work for the majority of people who try it, right? But to pretend that it does work for everybody or a large majority of people is insane, because it's just not how it fucking works. Changing your life from the inside out, manifesting a better life, whatever that means to you, is a highly individual, subjective process that's going to be different for everybody. If there was one magical technique that worked for everybody would fucking use it. But Neville's advice and techniques, as great as they are not that. There is no magic technique. You have to wade through the shit to get to the other side, to get to the quote unquote better, the better place you want to be. There's that saying, what is it? Like, the way to heaven is through the garbage dump, something like that. Neville's advice, his techniques are just one approach or way of doing this, right? But if you're just on the subreddit or go on the subreddit, with any type of frequency, you get this misperception that like there's one way to do it. It works well for everybody or for a lot of people. If it's not working for you, it's because you're doing something wrong. You're not living in the end, or you're not persisting enough, or whatever it may be. And that's it. It's this very cut and dry dogmatic thing, which is utter fucking bullshit. I would estimate at least 95% of people fail in applying Neville's advice in a way that is satisfying to them. That number, in all likelihood, is much higher. I don't think there are many people, for instance, that can just do sats or just, assume something imaginally and have it come to pass over and over and over again when it comes to the most significant things in their life, their relationships, their health, their financial situation, their job, etc. There are some people who can do that, but they are freaks in the best way. They're outliers. I'd say 99% of people, probably 99.9% of people who get into Neville's advice can't do that. And unless you're that 0.1%, well, then you got to figure out different things that work for you besides just listening to this dogmatic advice by people on the Neville subreddit that you've never met. You don't see their face. You don't know who the fuck they are. They have these weird usernames. You don't know if they're telling the truth a lot of the time. Usually you can tell if people are telling the truth if they're very straightforward. Like there was this post that I believe like last week, and I'm not saying the other posts are not true. I think a lot of them probably are true, but I think these people are often outliers or exaggerating or using hyperbole or, mistaking a one-time success as something that always works for them. But anyway, last week there was this guy or woman who did sats for a couple nights and then got a $30,000 windfall. It was a contract or something like that. A post like that's an excellent post. Very inspiring, very straightforward. Like, yeah, they did a visceral version of sats and demonstrated. Phenomenal. I love reading shit like that. It's great. But most of the subreddit is not that. Most of the subreddit is people saying how fucking great they are, how they figured out manifestation. This is all you need to know. And, it's basically a pissing contest. Totally, Cecilia called it mental masturbation. We were texting back and forth about it. And that's what it is, mainly. Again, this is not against Neville. I'm not criticizing Neville here. I'm just calling it like it is, you know? I put a post about SP advice on there, actually on Neville 2, because I knew it couldn't go on Neville 1. The Neville 2 subreddit's a smaller subreddit that people look at as well. I put a post on there about SP advice, about how, you know, the SP advice we hear, especially by these modern teachers, doesn't work well for most people. There's a high failure rate, which is just the truth. Like we're talking about here with, you know, there's high failure rates applying this manifesting advice for most people. And, you know, it was like the apocalypse on the subreddit, Neville 2 subreddit, when I said that. People couldn't handle it. They're in denial. And it's just, it's sad. You know, I said in a video last week, it's like the blind leading the blind on there. And, yeah, I posted something, or I was trying to post something a day or two ago, you know, just explaining what I'm explaining in this video about how there's such a high failure rate and people are afraid to admit that they fail and it's not working for them the way that they want, and how there's a lack of empathy and compassion for people talking to each other about their failures and supporting each other in a healthy way, like really the way a spiritual community online ideally should be like that, right? I put a post like that, and the Neville moderators, of course, were like, no, you can't put that on there, which I understand. I mean, they're trying to, or I don't understand it, but I mean, like they don't agree with me. So what it comes down to, they've got a very dogmatic view of what Neville is, I think. And then, yeah, I mean, I was going to put that post on the general law of attraction subreddit. They didn't even allow it on there. People don't want to hear the truth. The truth usually is, for most of us at least, that are not these outliers, these freaks in a good way. Because most people aren't freaks when it comes to applying this stuff. For most of us, you got to fail your way to success. And failure and being discouraged sometimes and a bunch of emotional stuff coming up, difficult emotions, fear, anger, sadness, shame, you got to work with and through that stuff. That's the truth for most of us. It's nothing like what you read on Reddit or whatever, or most of the YouTube videos you read about manifesting. It's nothing like that. These people have their heads in the clouds. And it's hard to get results when you have your head in the clouds like that a lot of the time, I think. And we can contrast this with the stuff we try to talk about on this channel, and that people who, when they get real about this stuff, you know, right? Or contrast it with someone like what Maxwell Maltz always talks about. And it's like we're talking about something totally different. You know, I often say it's like I feel like I'm speaking a different language compared to most of the people talking about manifesting concepts on YouTube or on, let alone Reddit or something like that. So I'm going to put a link above if you haven't watched this video. This video I did at the end of 2022, just reading from Maxwell Maltz from Psycho-Cybernetics, and just this idea of how you basically, for most of us, the best thing to do a lot of the time is just to fail your way to success. Get comfortable with failure. Don't deny the failure. Just keep failing your way to success, in the sense that failure is constructive criticism to get you to your end goal. It should not be seen as a negative thing in the big picture. It should be seen as a positive thing, a positive springboard to help guide you where you need to go to get what you want. It's all good. Trying to live in the end and deny that the failure is happening around you, and, you know, just having this head in the clouds thing when nothing's really happening, and you're in denial about the fact that you're failing because you're afraid to fail, and you don't want to deal with the emotions of failure, right? You don't want to work with them and through them. It's not the way for this stuff to work for most of us. Fail your way to success. Get more comfortable with failing and with fear and with being uncomfortable momentarily. Know it's all good. Know there's nothing wrong with you. That's how to turn a lot of these ideas and this dogmatism on its head and have this be this very open, individual, freeing process for you. You know? A gratifying, creative process for you. So I felt compelled to share this today. And I hope it was helpful for some of you. If you have questions, I can be reached at info@radicalcounselor.com.